Welcome to the Dental Decoders podcast. I'm your host, Brittany Rogars, and I'm here to help you crack the code on all things dental operations. Each week, we dive into topics to help you overcome roadblocks, streamline operations, and reduce team burnout. Whether you're an owner, a practice manager, or a team member, this podcast is for you. Join us for insightful discussions, engaging interviews, and practical tips. So sit back and relax as we crack the code on all things dental operations together. Welcome to this episode. We are joined by my co-host Rebecca again for this episode. I'm so excited to be able to have her in the studio with us once again to interview the great Christi Bintliff. She is the founder of Leap 2 Solutions. It's a boutique coaching agency located in Raleigh, North Carolina. She's a seasoned dental operations director, a coach, a speaker, a published writer. She brings experience-based expertise in leadership, practice management, and strategic planning fueled by her charismatic personality and cheerful outlook. Her LEAP methodology specifically caters to vision-driven leaders by identifying areas of growth and change, establishing strategic goals and objectives, aligning and engaging their teams, all geared towards achieving sustainable results. Although her specialty is in dentistry, her expertise will contribute to the successful transformation of other industries as well. In this episode, we get to dig into what makes a leader. What is a dental practice manager? And how can we build those leadership skills? So this episode is going to be fantastic for anyone who's currently in a leadership role or looking to get into a leadership role. You're going to want to listen till the end because Christi's key takeaway from this episode was absolutely fantastic and it really resonated with me. So I hope it resonates with you as well.
Hello, listeners. Today on Dental Decoders, we have Christi Bintliff with us, and we're so excited to hear from her. And we are going to start us off today with Christi. Thanks for being here.
Oh, I'm super stoked. Thanks for the invite.
I have been patiently waiting for this call. I'm super excited too.
Christi is one of my favorites. I love following Christi and attending her courses. And especially when she is so outgoing, she's not afraid to be herself. And it's one of the things I really admire about you, Christi, for sure. And I wish I could be more like you. I'll be totally transparent.
Oh gosh, that makes me feel so good.
We'd love for you to share some of your fun things about yourself, how you got started in the dental realm and what you love most about being here.
So I fell into the dental realm by a visit to the dentist. I was an IT programmer and absolutely hated it. And so it was at a time where dental offices were going to computers and IT was just becoming a thing. They hadn't even got to the internet yet. And he was asking me how I liked my career and I said I totally hate it because I need to be out and around people. And he's like, can you come back at 5? And so I came back at 5 o'clock and we bartered. It was supposed to be short term. And then I got them set up on their computers with the caveat that he would teach me a little bit about dentistry. And that's how it all started. And from there, I went to a bigger practice with 3 doctors and about 24 staff. And that's where I stayed for 20 plus years of my career. So it's been good to me.
That's such a unique start and such a cool way to get into the industry. Yeah. I love that story.
Yeah, never underestimate what can happen in a dental practice. It can lead to a promising career.
Yeah, speaking of careers in the dental industry, I want to talk to you about having a practice manager or an office manager inside your practice. I know one of the things that you are so great about talking about is that role isn't necessarily cookie cutter for every practice. I would love to pick your brain on that if you want to give our listeners a little rundown on that.
Yeah. So it's been a thorn in my side because I think it's so universally used that we haven't gone back to hone it down to really what the responsibilities are. For example, someone that is a front office supervisor or team lead will often have that office manager title, but they are only compartmentalized to that area. They're not having privy to payroll, leadership meetings, and things of that nature. And then you may have another person that is has the office manager title, but maybe they're more like a business manager. They're handling the practice management side with reports and talking between, all the departments and the owner, but they don't have privy to the back end with the reports that come with the accountant and working with them and doing all the strategic planning. And then you have the other person that is more like what I do and where many of us are, where we're doing the back end and the front end and everything, but we are privy to the P&Ls. We're talking with the accountant. We're doing the 401k management along with our doctors. We're strategically planning for upcoming years. So when you start breaking it down, just in me just telling you this, you could see there is a vast difference. And that's where someone like me, if I was trying to go and apply for a office manager title and they only wanted front desk, there's a disparity in the salaries that come with the responsibilities. And I just wrote an article on that because I think owners particularly and managers need to understand you may not be making that because you're not going back to the responsibilities. The responsibilities may be limited and others have a vast amount of responsibilities. Does that kind of break it down for you in a short version? Because I'm Southern and I talk a lot.
I love listening to you talk. I like the accent, so feel free to continue on. But no, that makes perfect sense.
I just feel like owners particularly need to understand this so that and be clearly defined on what they need in their practice and write the ad to attract it and change the title. Someone with a vast experience like I am is more like an operations director. And someone in the very beginning of this conversation that's doing the front office component is like a front office administrator or a team lead. So change the title to fit the roles of what you need. Don't just go with dental office manager. What does that mean?
I think it's easy for people when they're placing an ad, like you said. I think it's really up to the owner or whoever it is that's placing the ad, like you said, to be very specific in what they're looking for the person to be doing. But as a coach in that operational piece, I agree with you that it's important that they maybe not as much. I mean, I think it's just easy to choose the role, right? Office manager.
Yeah.
But I think, like you said, more importantly is to make sure that the person that's being hired understands what it is that you want them to do.
Exactly.
So much today, it seems like, from my experience, is that the person who's applying, it's the epitome goal, right? To be the office manager.
Oh yeah.
And so I think it's just easier for the person placing the ad to just list it as office manager.
Right.
And there is this salary expectation in their minds that, well, everybody makes such and such, right? When they're the office manager, and I need to make that amount of money. But you're right, they don't understand. Neither does the owner, I think, sometimes, where I think sometimes the leaders in the practice feel unappreciated.
Exactly.
Because the owner does not understand all the different pieces that they do take care of in the practice.
Exactly.
So my question, Christi, to you would be, how do you help the owners and or leaders who are placing those ads determine not only those responsibilities, but maybe some better titles that still help the leader in that role for that practice feel that sense of maybe advancement in that office or to a new career office, that change, but still feel like they're moving forward in their career and making some changes in their earnings as well.
Right. And I want to go back to that first. When I started, I was in the admin role and doing much like a front office lead. But I don't want to demean that role in any way. That was the building block for me to get where I am now. So anybody in that role should not feel as if I'm demeaning or degrading them in any way. This is where you take and hone your skills, and then you level up and you start working with that manager and co-piloting with them so that you understand. As far as the doctors, I really try to sit down with them, and because what I often hear is I can't find a manager, or I wish I had a manager that was similar to what you used to do. And it comes down to what are they willing to release to them with responsibilities. Because if their expectations are that they're going to have them over here doing payroll and so on, but yet they don't, then they're kind of setting their own selves up for failure. What are you willing to release and allow that manager to have in the responsibility of that role? And then we try to look at what title fits best to attract those individuals and list some of those key responsibilities so that someone that is applying is going to understand, okay, this is a little more than what I'm doing over here. And I only learned this because I was for several years practice administrator and operations director in the medical side. When they are looking for advanced level managers and operation directs, they have a very long, detailed job description.
Mm-hmm.
There is no confusion on what you need to have going even to apply and what your expectations are moving in. So that's kind of where I got that little tip.
I see a lot of offices getting very creative with some of their other roles, like the front desk position. I
Mm-hmm.
see like all of the cool new titles, like there's our front desk concierge and like our patient
Mm-hmm.
coordinators and our scheduling directors. I see all these like creative names coming out for those roles, but you don't see that as much in the leadership roles in the practice, which is kind of crazy to think about that paradox that we're really trying to sell that front desk role and make that sound
Yeah.
very very beautiful and refined, but we're not offering
Yeah.
that same for our practice managers and our leaders on our team.
Yeah. And if you go on the forums, particularly if you're looking under office managers, there
Mm-hmm.
is such a ongoing dialogue. Well, I only make this amount and this
Mm-hmm.
person's making this amount because people talk, but they don't understand that it depends on what your responsibilities are. It truly does. And for those of the, for, and it's a shame that those that are at the advanced level are being paid less than what they should be for the level of responsibilities. It just crushes my heart, to see that.
So one of the ways that I was able to increase my wages when I was in a practice and I was looking for that advancement. And I was already at a point in the food chain where it wasn't going to be super easy for me to continue
Mhm.
to scale, was taking some courses on leadership and honing in on my
Mhm.
actual leadership skills and not just being the manager, but also being the leader in the practice. And I know that's
That's
another
right.
thing that you're very well versed on. It's actually how
Mhm.
I was able to connect with you as I watched one of your coaching sessions on
Mhm.
leadership, which was fantastic. Would love to talk about how someone who wants to expand and maybe build their skills or move into a different role can
Mhm.
start to build some of these leadership qualities and what's the difference between a leader and a manager.
Mhm. So for me, what I did was I knew I was like here and I wanted to be here. Like I was striving for that big picture view.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew that I was limited in what I was doing in my role. So I had to branch out. What you can do is just talk with your owner and manager and start getting a mentoring program in house. The
Mm.
second thing you can do is start, if you don't understand how the back end of dentistry works, it's important that you understand that when you're trying to strive for the leadership role, because you need to have that clear understanding about how the clinical and the business side, how it all works together. And that can mean that you're shadowing on your downtimes or your off days in the clinical area and seeing what their pain points are because that's what we have to deal with when we're in the leadership or the consultant role. The other thing is I love mentoring with other people that are leaders outside of different industries. I learn key things that help me in my role. And then I take a lot of classes that are not paid or weren't paid by the practice, because that is an investment in yourself. And those things from owners, when they're looking at hiring and putting somebody in a leadership role, they're looking for somebody that thinks beyond where they are. They can actually see themselves in that role. They are doing what is necessary to get themselves leveled up, ramped up, and ready.
I agree with that. I think it's really important. And I'm with Brittany. I think your leadership courses that you do are really enlightening for people. One of the things I think that benefited me, and I would love to hear other feedbacks on this, is, like you said, an investment in yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
It isn't about always, your boss or you're a person that you're working for that invests. If you
Mm-hmm.
feel that you are of value, you should invest 100% in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And this was something that I learned years ago as well when I found out about ADOM, which is the American Academy of Dental Office Management. And they offer wonderful courses of, no cost to take, which is all about investing in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
There's, Dental Office Management 101, which is just the basics of things that you can understand. And so I think it really is about investing in yourself, right?
ADOM is a great resource for managers that, are supervisors or team leads that are here and wanting to branch out. There's so many learning components within it. It's been even a great resource for me, even like 10 or 20 years ago when I found out about them. It's just great.
I like it also for the component of people that are like dental assistants or even hygienists that are towards the end of their career and they know that they want to stay in dental, and they can make that transition to being in the front office, and they bring a wealth of knowledge with them that I don't think that they consider, which is they do have that back office knowledge that they can now bring to the front with the patients and leadership and management of the practice. And I love that about the offerings of their courses as well.
And there's a lot of courses that you can find online beyond ADOM. And the way I look at it is I can spend $25 on a cheap, terrible meal, or I can spend $25 and take this course that I'm going to get something out of that's going to feed my soul and feed my experience. To me, I will just get a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and let's dive into the course that's on leadership. That's a better investment. Exactly. Yeah, and when I came into the career, there was no internet. There was no exposure to ADOM. There was nothing. We were just on the cusp of coming into the digital age. We were just where we were it's okay to advertise in the newspaper or a magazine or have the website. So when I was doing the website, I was like, okay, let me learn how to do content creation. Let me learn how to do the social media. Whatever is new, start learning about it, because eventually, like AI is a big thing now. Learn as much as you can about it. That's going to be something that's going to be implemented more and more as we go into that next level age of technology here.
The one thing I did find is we kind of have been talking about this and learning and growing. I know both Brittany and I had some fun experiences at the end of our in-office experiences. We don't have to go back to that. I found that for me at the end, and when I decided to move on to a different aspect of dental, which has been, the coaching, and for Brittany doing the same, has been, you just get to that point of complete burnout. I mean, you're just burned out to that point that where you just are like, I need something different.
Yeah.
And I hate to see people leave the careers and leave dentistry for burnout. I'd love to hear what you recommend and what you've been out kind of teaching others in regards to burnout in the workplace.
So I do it more of, because I'm a chick, and I've always been in the car scene for a long time. So I do it as check engine light on. And we know when that check engine light's on, it starts out being that blinking light, and you're like, oh my gosh, but I'm going to ignore it. It's nothing to worry about. And then eventually it gets to it stays on, you'll be like, oh crap, I got to take it in and spend a whole lot of money. So that's the same as it is with burnout. And I'm speaking from personal reflection. When we were going through the pandemic and the onset of it, I was burning the candle at both ends and learning and trying to implement systems and navigating something that I'd never done before. And I got into insomnia. I was irritable. I was not eating right. I was withdrawn. I mean, and the list goes on. And so we have to be able to see that check engine light in our team. You know, they will often become withdrawn. They're a little your high performing ones, and some of the others will be irritable, snappy. They'll start undermining because in the back of their mind they're like, crap, you're going to add one more thing to me, you know, and I'm already drowning. And we don't understand the pressure that they have in the office with the labor shortage that we deal with, but also the pressures that they're having at home. The inflation that everybody is dealing with is hard on people. The trying to find childcare because childcare, you know, they're having labor shortages. So we forget to touch base with our team. It's so important to have mental health and burnout as part of your ongoing conversations. In the kickoff meetings that I do annually, that is a component of it. It's checking in, having that where we're not ashamed to have it hidden, but that it's front and center. Most every other business now are talking about it, and we should be doing the same, and we should be listening to what our teams need so they don't get into that where they've got to take the car in for a full service. You know, how can we help you when the light's just flashing?
And I love that you mentioned a little bit about your cars because I know you have that as a little side love that you have of your Mini
Yes.
Coupe. So thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. So just ask your teams, is your check engine light
Oh
for
my
you
God.
is it flashing or is it on solid? Where are you at with that? It's a good teaching barometer that I use to help us.
I wanted to ask you a question on the check engine light, not necessarily on the check engine light, but as you're starting to gauge the check engine light of your team, if a team member comes to you and says, like, hey, my check engine light is, what steps can then the practice take to try and remedy that? Or how can we use the data that we're getting from that conversation with our team to actually help our team members alleviate some of that?
So here's a good example. Like a lot of times in practices, they don't have a sterilization tech. So it becomes the burden. I'm just using this as one example. This becomes the burden of the other team to be able to do this. Well, we've got added protocols since we've been through the pandemic where our patients are needing more one-on-one conversations. We've got set up breakdown of the chairs. Then you got to go in the lab, and the lab is piling up. Sterilization needs attention. Their strips show thin. So when you're talking to them and maybe they use that as an example, then ask them what they see is the solution. Because I'm going to tell you, that one question was a game changer for me because they already have some ideas. They're not at that point where they're so clouded that they can't come up with some ideas. And then you go from that group of ideas, and leaders take that and try to determine viable solutions to take the edge off. Most practices, that would be an investment of someone solely dedicated to sterilization in lab. This is a great opportunity to take some of these ladies and gentlemen that may be in these 8-week courses that we know are out there, and they have general knowledge. But if you bring them in that role, that's entry level, and then they're learning, and maybe they can start leveling up, and maybe they can be your assistant at some point. So always look at where you can start with the solution and see how the solution takes you from that point. That's just one example that I can come up with. But always ask, what solutions do you think would help in this situation? and see what feedback they give, and then start working from that point out, if that helps.
That is so smart. It also helps the team member feel like they have some sort of say in their practice, or their voice is
Exactly.
being heard. Not only am I
Mhm.
telling you that I'm burnt out, but you want to hear my thoughts on how
Mhm.
we can fix that. I think that is such an amazing piece of information. That's a
Let
great
me
tip.
tell you, I am a solution oriented person, but nothing makes me happier than to get one piece of idea that I hadn't even thought about. A lot of times they can come up with an idea I hadn't even, it was a concept that I never had,
Mhm.
but from that I can build and make it be something. And always remember to give credit where credit is due. Don't take that idea as it being your
Yes.
idea.
Mhm.
Always make it go back, because that allows the other team members to feel that this is a co-piloting, collaborative environment that you have, where their voice matters and their concerns matter, because that's all about infusing that workplace culture that's positive, collaborative, and co-creation there.
Great feedback for sure. I love that. Well, as we wrap up with you today, Christi, we appreciate all of your amazing
Mhm.
ideas. And I love this has been, I think, a wonderful podcast topic for our listeners. And I appreciate you sharing all of your amazing tidbits with us today. So thank you so much. As we
Absolutely.
close out our episode today, Christi, we always ask our guests on the podcast to share one of their decoding moments in their career that they can share with our listeners as we close out today.
So I have one. As I just mentioned earlier, I am a car chick and I love Mini Coopers. I have a lot of them. I mod them. I race them. I do spirited drives. And so I drive the Tail of the Dragon in North Carolina, 318 miles and 11 curves. It's a
Wow.
blast. And when the pandemic happened and I was on that, I remember the first time I drove it. Let me go there first. When I was driving that the first time, I was scared. I was really terrified. And I was in the passenger seat with no control. And you're driving, it should be a speed of X amount, but we go way beyond that. And you come around one curve, you can go off the side of a mountain if you're not paying attention to your limits. You can try to self correct and go in another lane. You've got motorcycles, you've got other spirited cars. So it's a lot of things going. But on the drive during the pandemic, after I'd come in, I told my husband, I can't do this job anymore. I'm not equipped for that. And he said, go back. He's like, think of a time where it challenged you. And the Tail of the Dragon in my Mini Cooper, I was afraid as the passenger, and I was afraid the first time driving it. But after that, I learned to navigate it, and I learned to watch the key performance indicators of the car and what was going on around me. So I remember that was a challenge and I conquered it. So anything in leadership I can do, because I take it back to those times, and I pushed it hard a couple of times on these drives and went beyond my skill limit, which didn't cause an accident, but it could have if I hadn't have known that's my stop point. I need more information. I need to get skilled and leveled up before I take this drive again. And that's what leadership is about. It is about life. We're lifelong learners. We're never going to stop learning. We're never going to reach the top, because there's always a level beyond. And we are dealing with environments and communication styles, multi-generational, multicultural. They're using Slack and WhatsApp apps. They got slang. We have to learn how to, communicate with them. We have to be the leader that is the leader for all. It doesn't mean we're the yes person, but it means that we understand that this person needs to have us say things in a way that they can get it and they can understand. And then come back and fuse it all together where they all understand. It's important. And we forget that as we get to moving along. And then that's where the disconnect is. We have to be able to to know where our limits are and not push it, because that's not good for anybody. But also realize that where you're at in this leadership, it took a lot of failures to get to where you're at, and a lot of lessons that you learn. So every time you fail, don't look at it as a terrible thing. This is an opportunity, and that's just how I look at life in general. And yeah, so let's take that drive of leadership and enjoy it. Let's go around the twists and turns that are, and the hairpin curves and the obstacles that are coming our way. Because I don't know about you, but it's been the best drive I've ever been on.
I don't think I want to ride in the car with you.
Oh, come on, girl. We'll have a lot of fun.
Okay, I'll just wear my eye patch and take a nap.
That's it.
As long as you're driving and not me, I think it'll be okay. Awesome.
I love it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christi, for joining us. All these takeaways were so incredible. I'm so excited to be able to share this with our audience and get them connected with you. So thank you again for taking the time out for us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Christi.
Thank you so much for joining us for this week's episode of Dental Decoders podcast. We hope you took away a valuable piece of information. As always, don't forget to rate, share, and subscribe to help us build our community of dental decoders. We look forward to seeing you for next week's episode.